I always had an interest in recording bands right back to when I was about 15 or 16, and I would go around recording the few bands that I knew that were in high school. If there was a band in our town, I would try to go and record them. And that's kind of how, I would record Dave's band when he was in a different band, and same with Cone, he was in a different band. And then I stole them for our own band. By Does This Look Infected, our manager and I were effectively producing. I didn't really ever get any credit on that. But Underclass is where I first was like the official producer. Usually I don't start out wanting to produce a record. I always think it would be great to let's meet somebody and see if we can get something going with somebody else. And then the songs usually just kind of take shape quickly, and we start rehearsing them and we think, well, what else are we going to do to these? What are we looking for? If we're satisfied with what we've already got, it just seems strange to try to change them for the sake of change. I don't really understand it or think about it too much, but I feel like there is a difference to me of my producer side to tell my writer side when it's good or when it's not good. And the producer side of me gets excited about what sounds and stuff to work on, but my writer side will not let me go do all that stuff until the music's done. I can kind of leave things for the right time, because it's really fun, the second you have a song, to want to go and produce it and record it and make it sound really great. But you can waste a lot of your energy and your creativity by doing that, so it's best to stay in the songwriting mode till you have all your songs written, and then dive into being the producer, and kind of analyzing and saying, doing the demo, making it sound a certain way, sitting back. What I usually do is I get in the car and I drive around, and that's where my producer side comes in, and I'll say this song is going too long, or it doesn't get to this chorus quick enough, or whatever it needs to happen, or this chorus is not good, it needs to be rewritten, and then I'll send my writer side back and go rewrite stuff. I don't really find that being the producer affects the songwriting for me. Mostly, I feel like because I've worked with some really great producers that I always kind of feel like they're still over my shoulder helping me out. I mean, I learned so much from Jerry Finn, and I still feel like he's kind of helping me along. I mean, even though he only did one record for us, I stayed friends with him right up until his death, and we would talk a lot about music and producing and engineering. And if I ever feel like I'm stuck on something, I always have this thing where I'm like, I think about, what would Jerry do? What would Jerry say? And because I felt like I'd had enough experience with him, I kind of know what he would say, and that can help me. I've been fortunate to work with some really great people just to pick up some of that stuff. So I feel like I'm able to separate the songwriting from the production side. If I know in my heart that the song's not moving me, the producer side of me will tell the writer side of me to keep working on it. I think sometimes I will argue with my own self, because there's a vocal. I recently had this on this last record. There was a vocal that I did in kind of a one-take vocal, and I didn't love it as a performer. I knew I could do better. I could hear that it was not sung the best that it could be, but the producer side of me was telling me to say, that it is better because it's not that good. It has a bit more of a charm to it. And every time I listened to it, I'd say, I can't wait to redo that. And then I would tell myself, no, it's actually better this way. And I would argue back and forth. I'd just listen to it, live with it, listen to it, live with it, and I ended up just leaving it as is. Once the songs are written, I usually have a pretty clear vision of what I want it to sound like. And I think when I started becoming the official producer was because Does This Look Infected didn't quite sound like what I wanted it to sound, and I felt that there was other people involved in the process that had a different vision or whatever it was, and I wasn't experienced enough to sort of talk about things on that kind of level of why I didn't think it sounded right. I could only say, I don't know, this doesn't sound good to me, and not really offer anything up. But once I started realizing, if I just learn enough from these great guys that I know and that I've worked with, then maybe I can apply that knowledge and do it myself. And it's only just grown over the years to a point where we got to this record where I produced it and engineered it, but I also mixed it for the first time. So I was really able to sort of dial in exactly how I wanted it to sound. So the way it sounds is pretty much, I mean, you're always going to want it to be better, but it's as close as I could get it to what I could hear in my head when I was writing the music. As far as like producer inspirations for me go, I think it's like a mix of so many different people. I love Rick Rubin. I love Jerry Finn. Rob Cavallo. There's a lot of engineers that I've loved. Ryan Hewitt and Doug McKean. You know, Jack Joseph Puig is great. And then there's mixers. You got Andy Wallace and of course Tom and Chris Lord-Alge, Dave Sardi. I mean, I feel like I hear everything, all those guys in everything that I do. Well, I mean, my dream bands or artists to produce would be like completely unrealistic and would never happen because I would choose Metallica or something. You know, I think I could make Metallica sound pretty good. So as a writer, I don't really necessarily have a goal other than I'm just being honest in my own music. As a producer, I would have more of a goal because I want it to feel real, I want it to feel live, but I want it to sound exciting. But I don't want it to be over-processed and fake sounding because that's usually what a lot of people do to make it sound exciting. It ends up sounding fake, at least to my ears. I still record in a very old-school way. I don't do a ton of editing stuff. I really just try to get great takes, and we use Pro Tools as just like a tape machine on steroids because in the early days, we did our first 3 records on tape, and we still just record that same way. I mean, I still did the drums to tape on this last record. You know, it's just, to me, it just sounds better and it feels better.